Hello once again. This is start of a safari. For many years I worked as a safari guide and a game ranger in different game reserves in Africa, and this would be the kind of slideshow I do for colleges and universities and wildlife groups and etc. And this is the kind of information, along with the photographs, I'd give out during a normal day's safari in the African bush. The actual show itself is called Life and Death in the Long Grass, Survival in an African Eden. Photographs are all taken by myself. The information I give out is what I normally give to clients on safari, and also, as I said before, to lectures and to wildlife groups I give talks to that I've done in Japan, UK, Africa, elsewhere. Anyway, sit back. We're going to go on a pretty much of a day in the bush, starting in the morning, going through the evening, and then starting again the next day, and then finishing off as the sun sets. Sit back, enjoy the pictures, learn. A lot of what I'm going to say I've already said before in this course, so I'll skip over them a bit more faster than I normally would. But anyway, enjoy. I worked at the famous Sabi Game Reserve as one. That's me in the passenger side of the video. There were a group of us rangers. We all were in our black trackers. The black tracker used to sit on the bonnet. We used to drive. The guests used to be at the back of the Land Rover. We go out, and what we basically do is start looking for animals. By doing so, we drive down the road, find the tracks of an animal. Say we've just come over from the Kruger National Park or whatever, and then we would get out of the vehicle because we weren't allowed to use the vehicle in the bush because of bush damage. So we track it on foot first, then come back and take the guests in to view the animals from close, sometimes really close, as you'll see in the pictures. I spent many years doing this, over 20 years. I did it at the Sabi Game Reserve, Fair Chase Safaris in Zimbabwe, actually Bongani Mountain Lodge. Then I worked obviously in Mozambique as a dive master, but that's all in my book. But anyway, we're going to start off in the morning. Right, this is us just getting into the Land Rover. This is taken just before I went out on safari with guests. And one of my guests took this photograph of me just about to get in and start driving. But anyway, we're going to start off sunrise. We all start off early in the bush because that's when the animals are most active. Before the heat of the day kicks in, it gets really, really hot. It's still nice and cool in the mornings. The dew's still on the ground. With a small little herd of impala there in the background. Still very fresh. Still very nice. It's a very nice time of day to be out. The animals know it as well. The monkeys, they lie back. That's the vervet monkey and the baby lying back on their back, soaking up some rays, soaking up the sun, enjoying the first heat of the day before it gets really warm. Lioness stretches. I called her the Lisbon female. I knew her quite well. She was part of my lion study, because when I was at Sabi I started a lion study project, and she was a single female on her own, and she used to hunt on her own, and she also used to raise cubs very successfully on her own as well. Funny enough, I mean, not all lions are found in prides. Very often you find single females, single males, or two males, often brothers, and then you get the big pride system. But she was called the Lisbon female because the reason why she was Lisbon, she came from an area next to us called the Lisbon Estates, which was a huge big reserve next door to ours. There were no fences at all, and our territory was part of her territory, and I used to see her quite often. But she was one of the first things we saw as we came out the camp and started driving out into the bush, and there she was, having a good old stretch, getting ready for a nice siesta for the rest of the day, because lions sleep during the day and they actively hunt at night. Though they are opportunists, and if a chance presents itself, then they will kill during the day as well. Came across a little zebra foal. The zebra foal, I think I spoke earlier on in this course about why zebras have stripes. I mean, that actual debate rages on. I think it will rage on forever. Often called donkeys in pyjamas, whatever you want to call them. 3 different types, says here: the Burchell zebra, the Grevy's Mountain zebra, and the Hartman zebra, which is found up north. Told by their stripes. Once again, we don't know what the stripes are for. Is it for heat regulation? Is it for the patterning so they can recognize each other? Is it to attract the heat where the white reflects the heat? And the latest research says that it's there to stop insects because they get confused on where to land. We don't know yet, but I'm sure one day we will find out. And we also get what they call the dazzle pattern. Now, as I said before in this course, if you're a cat that's got black and white vision and you're hunting at night and you see that in black and white, in monochrome, at night, where you're going to hunt, what are you going to go for? You're just going to charge blindly because you can't work out what is male, what is rump, what is forward, what is head, what is shoulder. All you see is a dazzle pattern of stripes. That might be the reason why they have stripes, is to anti-predation. We don't know yet. Going along once again, you see often they swish their tails. As I said before in the course, they swish their tails not only for flies, or for flies at all really, it's for communication. As I said, when they're grazing, their heads are down, and they keep an eye on each other's tails. We'll get back to that a bit later. I got up quite close to the zebra foal. I just took a shot of its eye. I said to my guest at the back of the vehicle, I said, right, if you've got a zoom lens, get right in, and you can see we can get a lovely dazzle pattern and get a nice portrait shot of the of the foal, as he was just lying there, completely relaxed. Moving on, we came across this old buffalo bull. We call them Duggar boys. What they do is these buffalo is that they leave the herd when they get old, and they go and they sit in the bush and chew the cud and think about the good old days, whatever. But a bit like elephants as well. We call them Duggar boys. Often find them in the thick bush, in water holes. As you can see, they're very impressive set of horns. There's an apocryphal story, I think, I don't know if it's true or not, that some matador from Spain came over and he was going to fight a buffalo, so to speak. However, he took one look at that impressive set of horns and he turned it down, which I think was a very wise move. That thick base of the horns on the top of his head is called the boss, and that's there to protect the brain. Very, very peaceful animal. It's a bossy cow, really, but also one of Africa's most intensely dangerous animals if it's wounded or if it's just in a bad mood, so to speak. You often get the little oxpeckers, little birds, called a red-billed oxpecker, and you see one there on his nose. And what they do is that it's called a symbiotic relationship, where the actual oxpecker will take the ticks and the fleas off the animal. In return, the oxpecker takes the fur off the animal and use it to line its nest. So not only does the oxpecker keep the animal clean, so the animal benefits, the oxpecker benefits as well. Called a red-billed oxpecker. You often see them going inside the ears, around the eyes, and funny enough, one of your best friends, if you're tracking buffalo in the bush, or if you're just doing a walk, and say for example there's a sick old buffalo lying there, or he's wounded or whatever, and he's angry, he will wait for you and he will charge you. Whereas oxpeckers, they will hear you and they will start to chirr in alarm, and if you hear that call, then you know it's an early warning signal. Then you just backtrack or get out that area, or if you're hunting it, then you carry on to finish it off. You often get the herder buffalo. I took this picture when we got out the vehicle. We went for a walk and we came across this herder buffalo at a water hole, at a pan, And as you can see, as male, females, calves are all there. And they're very curious. They're not dangerous, don't get me wrong. They're not going to stampede you or anything like that. They're just very curious. So they all ran forward to have a look at me and my clients. And I took this photograph. The rifle was over my shoulder. There was no threat. There was nothing whatsoever. But it can be pretty intimidating, as you can see. I mean, if you didn't know what you were doing, you'd be up a tree so quickly. But the fact remains that it's not a dangerous animal unless, once again, it's wounded. One of my favourite animals, a buffalo. Same, it's called Sincerus cafer, which is basically the same family as the bison in America, water buffalo in Asia. Many people say that Africa's got water buffalo. It's not a water buffalo, it's a Cape buffalo. Water buffalo is found in Asia and is much more placid. I mean, you can't harness an African buffalo to do ploughing or to harness rice. It's too wild. You can do it, though, with the Asian water buffalo. They're much more tameable. Same with the Indian elephant as well. You find them in circuses. Much more, or used to, thank God. We don't do that rubbish anymore. But the African elephant is much more untamable. A bit like the great white shark as well. You won't find a great white in an aquarium. Too wild, it'll die. Same with the buffalo. You cannot make it domesticated unless it's a very young calf. And even then, I can't see it getting to pull a ploughshare in any time in the near future. Came across a nice little herd of elephant. You can see there in the water hole, having a bathe and a dip before the evening, before the sun starts to get really hot. They love the water, elephants. They can drink up to about 80 litres a day. They can swim. In actual fact, in Mozambique, they've been known to swim across the ocean to get to islands off the shore, off coast, the distance of a couple of miles. And I've seen them swim across the Kariba Lake in Zimbabwe using their trunk as a snorkel. I've actually watched that myself. So they are very good swimmers, surprisingly enough. I mean, you couldn't imagine an animal that weighs 2 tons being able to swim, and with no fins or no physical adaptations to make it swim. But swim they can, because they float, because of the amount of gas in the body, and they doggy paddle just like a dog would. Came across this old truculent elephant bull. So I thought about get nice and close. I mean, as I said before, we've got the comfort zone, the awareness zone, the critical zone, etc. But I used a zoom lens on my camera to really zoom him right in to show the colour of his skin, the textures of his skin. You can see on the front there how the different textures from going down to his trunk and to his forehead. And that skin is very sensitive. You can actually touch his back foot and he will know exactly where he's been touched, and he will turn around. So the skin is very, very sensitive on an elephant. You tend to think it's thick and rubbery and leathery and has no sensation or emotion, but that's not the case. As you see there, as we are left or right-handed, elephants are the same with their tusks. They use one tusk for digging up roots, taking bark off trees, etc. And then they use the other tusk for attack or defense if need be. Now you can tell that this elephant's a southpaw. He's left-tusked. As we are left or right-handed, he is left-tusked. But he's busy blowing double mud over his forehead, because the mud cools him down, and it also traps the parasites and insects in the mud. Then he goes and he rubs it against a tree and they fall off. But it's also mainly to cool them down, and the fact I think they just enjoy wallowing in the mud. I mean, who wouldn't? As you can see there, he's throwing it on his forehead. That's a different one. You see, he's right-tusked, because his tusk is totally worn down on the right side. But unfortunately you can't see his left tusk, but I can tell you that tusk was perfectly fine. As I said before, they eat up to 300 pounds of food a day. It's about 180 kilograms. A lot of it is passed straight through. It's what they call a bulk grazer. And their dung is extremely fertile because of that. And in actual fact, quite a few of the seeds they eat, the seeds rely on the stomach acid of the elephant to strip away the hard outer covering so they pass through and then they can germinate. They also eat the marula tree, the fruits of it, which is a big yellow fruit about the same size as a plum. And unfortunately, it's a big bit of a story that they get drunk on these because it's a very strong alcoholic effect on them. But that's not the case, because they're not in their body long enough for it to have any fermentation problems. They do get drunk on palm toddy though, which is a tree found up in East Africa, and also has a very strong narcotic effect. And it's a true story. The elephants actually do get completely whacked on that, and then suffer the hangover the next morning with all its nightmares and bad moods and migraines, whatever. You don't really want to be walking to one of those guys in the morning. Then once again, it's one of the only animals outside of humans that can change its habitat. What they do is they uproot a tree, the tree falls down to the ground, the nutrients of the tree leach back into the ground, the branches and the leaves act as a natural windbreak. So when the wind blows, the dust flies against the tree and then falls back down to the ground, hence the windbreak, and it starts to change a habitat like that. It's one of the only animals that can actually change its habitat like we can. Now the thing is about the tusks of an elephant, I mean, we basically, the days of the big old East African 100-pound 12-foot long tusks are over, because unfortunately due to habitat, when people say hunting and poaching, it's not just that we don't get big tusked elephants anymore. It's a lack of habitat. Whereas before they could wander at will throughout the continent, and each country, what we call countries, had its own different type of vegetation that you wouldn't find in another part of the country. Now a certain part of that huge varied diet would go into building huge tusks because it could. And nowadays with a much more reduced diet, where they are kept in one spot and one spot only, the tusk size has automatically gone down because all the nutrients are going into survival of the body, not in building tusks. That, coupled with poaching and hunting, etc., has reduced the tusk size. Okay, we do get the occasional big tuskers. I mean, when I was there, we had the magnificent Double 7 in the Kruger Park, and I was lucky enough to spend time with the Mundelev, which is a big elephant that we had over at Sabi Sabi. That's all in my book, and I think it's been mentioned earlier on in one of my lectures. Now let me just give you an example. I'm going back. That's a bull. You can tell by the round forehead, round head. Most you can tell it's a male. Female's got an angular head, as you can see there. Right. So the male's got the bull head. The female's got the angular head, as you can see there. Once again, bull. Once again, female. Now that over there, coming across, that is a waterbuck. Called a waterbuck because it likes the water, obviously. Also, you can see that white ring around the backside. That is a visual aid, so they can follow each other when they're running through the bush. Most animals have got that. Impala have got the black stripe. Lions have got the black tip to the tail. This is the waterbuck. Funny enough, the fur has a built-in oily covering that covers the fur, so it doesn't get waterlogged, because they are eaten by lions. But unfortunately, that also makes the meat very, very foul tasting. And as a game meat aficionado, I mean, I love my venison. That's one of the antelope that we cannot eat. Well, we can, but it just doesn't. It's not poisonous or anything, but it just doesn't taste very nice at all. Very handsome animal, very handsome. His Latin name is Cobus ellipsiprimnus, which means the ellipsiprimnus is regarding that white ring around its backside, which is basically to follow each other. We came across this cheetah lying on an anthill. Beautiful female. gazing off into the distance, looking for prey. She had some cubs with her. Look, cheetahs hunt during the day. I've gone in length about cheetah in the lectures before. So I'm not going to delve into too much scientific detail here, because I've covered that in one of the lectures on module 1 and 2. But like I say, this is a game driver anyway. She was just staring into the distance, looking. They must incredibly. Funny enough, a cheetah is not a cat, as I said before. His Latin name is Econonyx jubatus. Now your cat are Panthera and Felis. Felis for your small cats, Panthera for your large cats. Small cats will be your black-footed cat, serval, etc. Panthera would be your leopard and your lion, tiger, jaguar, whatever. Where the cheetah is Econonyx jubatus. So it's not a cat. Well, it is a cat, but it's not a cat, if you know what I mean. It looks like a cat, walks like a cat, hunts like a cat, so it's a cat, but it's not a cat. I'll leave that there. You see the cub there on her side there, just on her left side? And the cubs have a white mantle of fur down their back. That makes them look like a honey badger, because a honey badger's got that white fur as well, which I explained before. Just so that they don't get hunted, so they don't get killed, because a honey badger is psychotic, and most animals with any ounce of sense would not try it on with a honey badger. That's what the theory is anyway. Proven? Well, no one's actually proven it as such, but it is a possibility. But they use the anthills to aid in their binocular vision, so they can see something in the distance, because they hunt during the day. As I said before, they can't hunt at night, and once they see something, they can commence to stalk. That's just what she did. She saw something, suddenly gained interest, saw something in the distance. Could be a herd of impala, could be whatever. I couldn't make it out. I could see a herd of impala through my binoculars in the distance, I thought that was what she was going for. Anyway, she jumped off the termite mound and ran off. I tried to keep up with her in the Land Rover. She climbed a tree, or a small tree, jumped off, commenced to stalk. I got stuck in the mud. I got stuck in a hole. By the time I got out, she'd already made the kill. So what I did, when I was young and foolish, I jumped out of the vehicle, crawled up to her leopard crawl with my camera to get a ground level shot, and she turned around and told me to piss off in no uncertain terms. And that was taken from about 8-9 feet away. So she let me get that close. And these were the days before the FAGASA, Field Guide Association of Southern Africa, concept of critical zones, awareness zone, and there's also before my age of common sense as well. But anyway, I did back off, and she carried on with her meal. That's an impala ram. Funny enough, one of my favourite animals, impala. People go on about, yeah, they love leopards, and I love leopards as well, or any of the big five, but the impala, we used to call them type of Mac impalas, because they're basically eaten by everything, from python to cheetah to hyena to leopard to lion. It is the most abundant prey species, but also the most handsome, and also the most pretty as well. You often find, this is just, as we're just driving along, you just see a complete circle of life around you, wherever you go. You've got impala in the distance, you can see the black stripe down the impala's rump there, so they can follow each other like the waterbuck. Little herd of zebra, standing once again, if you notice on the right side, on the right hand side, head to rump. They seem to do that a lot. I don't know what it's for comfort, or just that's what zebras do. Came across this little load of rhinoceros lying in the white rhinoceros, lying in a water hole in a donga, cooling down. It's starting to get really hot now. White rhinoceros. It's called white rhinoceros from the word vate, white, wide. You've got a wide mouth for feeding off grass. Whereas a black rhinoceros has got a pointed mouth, prehensile lip for eating leaves. One's a browser, the other one's a grazer. The white rhino is a grazer. eats grass. With the white rhinoceros, the calf always walks in front of the mother, so they can see better, etc., etc. Whereas a black rhinoceros, because it's in the thick bush, the calf runs behind the mother. Her gestation period is about 15 months. This is how long she holds the baby for. She gives birth to one young only. No, I don't think there's been any case of twins being born with either elephant or rhinoceros. Eyesight's very bad, but hearing is absolutely very, very good. The white rhinoceros is very placid. Doesn't give anybody any trouble really. It's just very laid back. Whereas the black rhinoceros is a completely different kettle of fish. Fortunately, we didn't get black rhino where we were. As I said, they are so scarce nowadays due to poaching. They're only in very small pockets, and the white rhino was obviously much more abundant. But even they're under threat now as well. They've got a very long head that goes down so they can reach the grass, very short legs so they can reach the grass, and an extra lump of muscle, as you can see behind the ears there on the shoulders, to compensate for the extra weight of the head going down. 30 million years of being virtually unchanged, and unfortunately they are a threat for our activities. Now obviously the first form of defence for a rhinoceros is its horn. That horn is composed of the same material as your fingernail. It's called chitin. It's not bone. It's not attached to the skull per se, it's more attached to the front of the nose and the skin. And it serves as a weapon. Unfortunately, it's also its downfall. Now we've had to dehorn rhinoceros. So the animal itself can live, it does not get poached. But the problem there is you're playing with future gene pools, because if you dehorn one rhinoceros in the bush and it comes up against an inferior male gene pool wise that has a horn, the dominant male, the one that should be passing his genes over, will lose because he has no horn, where the inferior one will be able to mate with the females because he's won the battle. And then the females give birth to a sickly calf that dies. Because the bush doesn't take, nature does not take prisoners. If it's sickly, it will die. If it's inferior genes, it will die. If it's inferior animal, it does not live long. The reason why it has a big long horn, because it's better than anything else. We take that horn off, it's no longer better, it's at the bottom of the tree. And 15 months down the line, we get a rhino calf dying. And we cannot afford to lose calves now. We cannot afford to lose babies now because they are under threat and they are almost extinct. So it's a sad reflection that we've got to cut the horn off to save its life. I think we all know what that is. That's a giraffe. Big male, once again. 7 vertebrae in its neck, just as much as we've got. Big thick horns on the top, shows it's a male. The reason why they have those horns is mainly so they can headbutt each other. When the males fight, they fight for females, they do so by headbutting each other. Fatalities are not very common, but they do happen occasionally, but not very often at all. Specialist browsers, they eat off the top canopy of the leaves, hence the long neck, which serves a purpose for keeping the top clear so the sunlight can reach the ground. Very occasionally, I think I said before, the acacia tree where they browse upon, the second it starts getting browsed upon, it releases a tannin that goes up from the roots into the leaves, which makes the leaves unpalatable. So the giraffe has to go a bit further on, then try the next tree. Eventually, because of communication through these psyllium level, which is your fungus underneath the ground, which acts as almost like a bush-wide internet, all the trees in the area start to secrete this tannin, and the giraffe has to leave the area completely to go find somewhere else to browse. Nature's way of stopping over, because I always thought, why doesn't if a giraffe is going to eat, why don't you just choose one tree and eat its full off that tree? I mean, if you're going to go to a restaurant and go out for dinner, why have Well, I have the first course in one restaurant, then the second course in another restaurant, then the third course in another restaurant, then actually dessert in another. It doesn't make sense. Unless you're obviously like a hi-fi aficionado, you get all different components to your hi-fi. No, it makes much more sense to just eat the whole lot in one sitting. And then it's only when they did the research, that's when they realised, okay, it has to leave the area. To nature's way of overgrazing. Now, the mycelium is your fungus underground that occasionally comes up to the top as mushrooms, and that fungus is part of the tree system as well, and that's how they communicate. So if one tree starts to get eaten by a giraffe, it will communicate with the trees next to it via the underground mycelium type of internet level, and the other trees will start to secrete the tannin as well, and the giraffe has to eventually move out of the area. Funny enough, also in the Kruger National Park, they've got tar roads, and the people say, well, why do you have tar roads? It kind of takes away the impact of driving in African dust roads. And the answer to that is because the leaves get covered with dust. I mean, you wouldn't want to eat a leaf that's covered in dust. You would eat further inland, where you can't be seen from the road. So the tar is to keep the leaves clean, so the animals will be closer to the road. Busy eating around the top level of the tree there, quite happy and content. Then moving on to an area where the trees have not warned each other yet of their presence, and they have to leave the area to go and eat somewhere else, because the trees that they were feeding off are now unpalatable. And they start feeding off that tree there, way off into the distance, with a couple of zebra looking at me and my clients with interest. Then eventually they'll leave that tree and then carry on next. As I said before, when they drink, they have to bring their head down to drink. The arteries in the neck have special non-return valves, stop the blood rushing to the brain. It brings his head up, the valves open again. That's a very old male. As they grow older, they grow darker. They live to about 18, 19 years. It's average lifespan. If you look on his neck, there's a scar there. A big circular scar about halfway between his shoulders and his head. That's an algae. That's a form of bacteria, skin disease. It's not through any kind of external, like a attack or whatever, or it's a kind of skin disease that they get. It's a form of eczema, unique to giraffe. I could give you the Latin name, but it wouldn't really serve any purpose. Coming to a water hole now. It's really hot now. It's really steaming hot. I mean, you're looking about 42 to 45 degrees. This little herd of impala coming down to the river. There's males and females coming down to drink. Like ballerinas in a row. A couple of very young males there with very small horns. You can see the first one on the left and the fourth from the left. Very young males. Some giraffe and zebra come down. They're looking at me. But there's something in the air. I'm telling to my guests, I can remember this quite well. Turned around to my guests, I said, there's something going on here. These animals are not. There's something in the air, something in the wind, I'm not too sure. There it was. About 40 yards away, with the wind in its face, so its scent was being blown away. A young male lion, looking. I could see it. And every time the animal turned its way, its head went down and it disappeared. Don't forget, the animals can only see, they can't see the colours that we can. The lines are shaded to look like the grass, hence their colour, the tawny colour. Anyway, the stalk commenced, One picked up. Take a look at the one in the middle. She's seen him. She's moving. She's starting to react. Look at the level of the tail and the eye. Her tail will stop. They pick it up, and they will see straight away that there's something wrong. The other one's there. She's reacting as well on the other side. There she's looking. That wildebeest tail flicking. About to stop. And the next thing is complete pandemonium. There is danger in the air. They're all running. They're all getting out the air as soon as possible. Like a flash of tawny, a flash, the male came in and killed. And that happened about 20 feet from my Land Rover. Young male lion, on his own, kicked out the pride, because they get kicked out the pride at that age, and he has to now go and find his own pride. He can only do that once his mane has grown up properly, and he can then challenge a dominant male to his territory and his females. The scene was heard by a hyena down the road. We heard the whoop whoop call of the hyena. She came to investigate, but it was only a single one, not part of her pack. But she thought better of it and left the scene. A hyena is a very interesting animal. It's not a dog, it's not a cat, it's its own species. It's called the Crocuta crocuta, which is Latin name. It's more related to the mongoose than it is to any other animal. Very effective clean-up. Their fur is bristly, like a toothbrush, so it doesn't get double matted with blood and gore. The most powerful jaws in the animal kingdom to crush bones. Very powerful shoulders to get in there to crush those bones. But they're matriarchal, which means a female runs the pack. Very hard to tell between male and female, because both females and males have got male genitalia, though the females ones are obviously non-functional. We get two types. We get the spotted hyena, three types. The spotted hyena, which is the most common, the brown hyena and the striped hyena, but the spotted hyena is the most common. Run by a female, she's the boss, the mortal enemy of lions, and pretty much one of my favourite animals. Come across these two, what I call the two brothers, the two kings. We were driving along still, we'd seen the kill, we're moving on, and we came across these small little prides, and these were two brothers. Two brothers I knew very well. They're part of my lion subject, my lion project that I was doing. They're part of a pride which I call Damage Incorporated, because they were so effective at what they did. The females would hunt using these guys as the heavy artillery, which means that the females would let their scent herd the animals towards these two big guys here, and they would kill the animal, they would bring it down, which is quite unusual, because it's often the other way around. The male would let his scent go down and chase the animals towards the females lying in wait. But I think these guys just enjoyed hunting, I think. But they were very pleasant. You can see they're having a nice siesta during the heat of the day. Once again, that mane's there to protect the throat in territorial fights, and also so the females can recognise him over long distance. And you can see the white stripe under the eye acts as a reflector to bring light into the eyes at night so they can see better. Drive along, came across this little herd of ladies called the ladies group, or the ladies club, whatever you want to call them. 7 little ladies in parlour, just ambling along quite nicely down the game trail. They stopped to look at us, we stopped to look at them. You see the glossy sheen to the coat. The coat's very shiny at night, during the day. And most animals are like that, got a very clean, glossy sheen to them. I love that. Came across this warthog. Warthog is obviously it's a member of the pig family, the same as a giant forest hog, the boar, etc., etc. Case in point, that's the male. The male's got 4 warts on his face, 2 either side, and the female's got 2. Hence the name warthog. lives in a burrow in the ground, in a hole. Always goes in backside first, so his tusks face the entrance. And when they run, they hold their tails up high, so they can follow each other. A bit like a radio antenna, so to speak. Very comical creature, very enjoyable creature actually, because they're always good value. I love warthogs, and we used to find them often around the camp, coming in and eating off scraps and thrown out by the kitchen, etc. Same with the baboons. You get a lot of parasites in the bush, you get a lot of ticks and fleas and whatnot, and so what the animals do is that they roll in the dust, having a dust bath. And came across this little herd of zebra, and one's been rolling to rid himself of the parasites off his back. Very effective. And then he does that, and what happens? The birds come and they feed off the parasites off the ground. Another old truculent double buffalo bull chewing the cud. One thing about buffalo is that I've always noticed they've always got torn ears. Look at his ear, his left ear, it's always torn, and I don't know what causes that. Either whether they've been dragged through the bush or I don't know, but often I've seen them with torn ears. Strange animal. Weighs over a ton. It's one of my favourite animals in the bush. It's the only animal I've walked into quite often on safari other than lion that are completely, they're placid. They leave you alone. Same with the elephant as well. And the exception there obviously is if there's a problem, if it's ill or it's wounded or whatever. But listen for those oxpeckers, they will let you know it's there. That's a malachite kingfisher, a beautiful jewel of a bird. Interesting point about kingfisher, you know when they have chicks is if they're holding the fish in its beak with its head facing forward, it's off to feed the chicks, so they can push the head down the gullet of the chick without the gills opening up and getting in the way. If it's not having chicks, it's the opposite way around. The fish is facing tail forward, so they can swallow it easy. So if you want to photograph kingfisher chicks, you look at how they're carrying the fish. Then you find the nest in a burrow, most likely, and then obviously you put in a micro cable camera, not a full one. I mean, you don't want to have any interference whatsoever, but you know what, if they're having chicks or not, just how they carry the fish. That's a Malibu stork. It was just just sitting on a big branch. We were driving up. The sun's starting to go down now. He flew off. The Malibu stork is the same as the vulture. It eats dead meat. You can see the bald head, so that its head can go deep inside the animal without being encrusted with gore. Also, it looks a bit like an undertaker, the Malibu stork. One of my favourite birds as well. That's a ground hornbill. Ground hornbills like to walk on the ground, also called a turkey buzzard. Ground hornbills like to walk along the ground, and they feed off the ground, hence the name ground hornbill. She gave me a bit of a supermodel stare. And often they hunt tortoise or hunt double lizards, and in small groups, they can fly but not very far, and then they go up into the trees to roost at night. It's called a ground hornbill, also called a turkey buzzard. That big red pouch in front of behind her beak is called a gula pouch, and that's there to make the booming noise that they're famous for. That's a yellow-billed hornbill. The yellow-billed hornbill, what he does is quite interesting, is that he puts the female in a hole in a tree, builds a wall so she can't get out, a door, traps her in there with a hole so she can defecate out. Inside she lays the eggs, then raises and hatches the chicks. He feeds her through this hole in the tree with a door. Only after the chicks are about to fledge does he then break open the door, and she's then allowed to fly free. And that's your marriage hornbill style. Beautiful bird. They're all over where we were in the Sabi Sand Game Reserve. And I don't think any game drive is complete without seeing at least a dozen of them. It's a female leopard lying in a tree, gazing up into the distance, looking at us. Look at the size of her eyes. Very big eyes leopard have got, with the size of their face. I've always wondered about that. Well, not wondered about it because it's obvious they can catch more light, but it is the most beautiful animal. Beautiful cat. She was just lying there looking at, getting ready for the evening, no doubt, because they hunt at night. Pound for pound, other than the jaguar, it's the strongest cat in the world for its size. Very good at camouflage. They often hide behind things. We came across this fella. She was hiding behind a tree, not hunting, just hiding. As you look in the distance, you see there's another Land Rover parked a short distance away. She basically just pretty much walked between us. I walked. You see the curl of the tail. It's also as a visual aid that if and when she has cubs, they can follow her in the bush as well. Now once I parked in an open field once. I had some guests with me on safari. I think they were from Turkey, Turkey and another couple was from Switzerland. Anyway, we were parked in this open field, and I'd heard via the radio that a big male tom leopard was walking straight towards us, or this field anyway. So we sat in this field, of course quite long, and we just sat and waited. Eventually this big male tom leopard walked out of the thick bush, started walking straight towards my Land Rover. I started to take photographs as he approached. He was walking towards the passenger side. Now take a look on his neck. You see there's a little V shape, very shallow V, between, just up from his shoulders, down his neck. That V is an identification mark. If you're doing a leopard project, each one's different. Each V is different. It's called the bib pattern. So that's the bib. Anyway, he started walking straight towards us, quite happily. Got closer and closer. By this time I was starting to get a bit perturbed and think, okay, I'm not meant to be doing that. Licking his lips, as you can see he's doing there. Now he's heading towards my passenger side. Now don't forget, I've got no doors on this Land Rover. It's completely open. There's no canopy. Sorry, there's no doors. So I told the client next to me just to lean over towards me, and just in case, God forbid, I would ever have to use it, I took the rifle off its bracket and loaded it round into the chamber. He then came right close up, stopped, licked his lips once more, crawled underneath my Land Rover, and then came out my side, not even 2 inches from my shoe, and carried on walking off. And this was filmed by some guest on another Land Rover, and I've yet to see that. I've yet to find that film. It might be on YouTube somewhere, I don't know. If it is, let me know. Beautiful big male leopard. Once again I caught him just as his tongue came out. It's one thing about wildlife photography, so a lot of it is just luck. Luck, timing and patience. Right, it's getting dark now. This is the time we normally stop. It's an old male bull. We saw him just ambling off into the distance. I don't know where he ended up, don't know where he was going. Might be going to the Kruger, might be going to Mozambique, might be going to Zimbabwe, I don't know. Just a good old elephant bull just ambling away. Timeless Africa. This has been, it's been a victorious day. We've seen a lot of good stuff. Now we stop for a sundowner. We would stop, I'd stop the Land Rover. We'd open up a cooler box, get out a gin and tonic or a beer. I'd get some biltong out, which is a form of dried meat, and we'd have a drink called a sundowner. And sit and talk about what we've seen today, what we've been through that day, etc. It's an African tradition. So we're moving on now. My tracker's on the bonnet. He's using a spotlight. Could use a spotlight. to highlight things at night. I've got the headlights of the car in the front to see where I'm going, and he's got this very powerful spotlight that he uses. And he came across this white-faced owl. Also, one of my favourite birds. White-faced owls got the white face to reflect light into the eyes. We've got very exorcist, demonic eyes there, but that's just the way the eyes are coloured. The tufts on his head are not ears, but they're for decoration. The ears are on the side of its head, but they're skew. One ear is higher than the other, so the sound levels of animals going in the bush hit it at different times. That way he can zero in on exactly where it is. He can then triangulate, because each ear is in a different place, exactly where the animal is, prey is, and with its specially adapted feathers for soundless flight, it will go in and make the kill. A giraffe lie down at night. They're very vulnerable. In fact, a giraffe lying down is the equivalent to walking in for a takeaway, if you're a cat. But they do lie down. I've seen them lying down quite often, and they must be really comfortable lying down, because they know by the time they get up it's too late. So they must be hearing things and seeing things that we can't even imagine. Because if I was a giraffe and I was know that there's lions actively hunting me that night, I would not be lying down. So maybe they just don't have the imagination we've got, or maybe they do, but they're just so much more far advanced with their senses that they feel that they know there's nothing in the area that's a threat to them. Lions roaring. They roar at night. They roar at night. The roar is produced by two special bones in its throat that vibrate, amplifying the sound. Acts as a giant nasal voice box as well. And that roar can be heard over 7 miles away. I've heard it right next to my Land Rover, and believe me, it makes the bush shake. It's that loud. It is really, really loud. A cheetah heard that roar, and she's looking into the distance, trying to triangulate if it's coming towards her or away from her, because don't forget, the competition amongst cats is immense. A lion will kill a leopard on sight, a leopard will kill a cheetah on sight, and both will kill a cheetah on sight. Not through hatred, through competition. Their instinct says you are a competition towards me and my family line, and I will thenceforth kill you. Not eat you, kill you just because you are a threat to my family genes. There's no friendliness. They don't tolerate each other's presence. There's cases of lions killing leopard, a case of leopards killing cheetah. In one case, I had a mother and 2 cubs lying in the thick grass, and a lion, big male lion, was walking straight towards them, following the spotlight of another. Well, one of the other Land Rover was telling me over the radio that they've got a big male coming towards this female and her cubs. They're going to keep the spotlight off the lion, and I must keep the spotlight off the cheetah. So there's no unfair advantage either side, because we don't get involved with nature, we observe it. If we weren't there, this was going to happen anyway. So we turned the spotlights off, and I was praying, please, I don't want to see this cheetah and her cubs killed. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, once the attack had commenced, then we can turn on the spotlights, because it's happening anyway, so what we do is just not going to influence it. But fortunately, the cheetah saw the male lion long before he saw her, and she just quickly got up and melted off into the darkness with her cubs, safe and sound. We came across this male lion and killed a wildebeest on a wildebeest kill. Often what he did was quite unusual for me, because what he did then was he grabbed it, started to pull it towards my Land Rover. Came closer and closer over to my side of the Land Rover, and he stopped and started to feed. You would have thought my Land Rover was some sort of bush or something that he could just wedge it under, and by this time my clients were like hyperventilating with fear. I said, don't worry, he's not interested in us at all. Because one thing you've got to forget, don't ever forget, in a Land Rover they can't smell you, because our scent is mixed in with the vehicle. They can't see you, because your shape is mixed in with the shape of the vehicle. They can only see your head and shoulders. Henceforth, they think they've been seeing this Land Rover since cubs. Since they were babies, they've seen this Land Rover, so they're totally used to it, to a point. If you stand up or get out of the vehicle, then they'll see you as a human being and react accordingly. We got really, really close, and I was really able to get in close with the zoom lens on my camera to get a really, really nice shot of him feeding. And he turned around and started feeding from the other side. And that picture there is won quite a few awards of the male lion feeding, which was quite a lucky shot. It just goes to show. And I mean, there was once I was watching a leopard walking down the road, and I had some clients from America, and this guy just got a new video camera for Christmas, and he was filming this leopard walking, and somebody said to me, don't tell him to stop, just let him film. And as this leopard was walking down the road, it stopped, and it suddenly jumped onto a porcupine, and flipping it over, because the porcupine's got those quills to protect its brain, because its skull is very soft. And how a leopard hunts a porcupine is that it flips it over onto its back and smacks it with its paw on its forehead, killing it immediately, which is what this leopard did. He got the whole thing on video. I've never seen a happier man at that night around the fire. I asked him to send me a copy, but he never did. But anyway, it's all down to luck. Down to luck when it comes to wildlife photography, filming. Luck, patience, timing. Now, leopards often take their kill into a tree. They do that to protect it against hyenas and lions. Hyenas will follow the scent or the sound, same as lions, and they will chase that leopard off that tree, off that kill. So to prevent that, the leopard takes the kill up into a tree, which is what she did there. Started feeding. I drove in close, watched her feeding away. She was on about 20 feet above us, you can see the light of the spotlight in her eye. She stopped feeding when she heard there's some lions in the distance, roaring away, as lions do at night. Looked back over her shoulder, looking into the distance. Don't forget, this is all within 20 feet of my vehicle, you know. You've got to admit, you've got to realise one thing: those animals, they don't see humans, they don't smell humans, they have no idea we are there. Which is when you're doing a walk, it is a completely different ballgame. Then they see you as a human and they react accordingly, which is most of the times they run away. Coming across later, we came across this old leopard. Everything has its finite time on this world, whether it be an insect, ourselves. Everything has to die sometime. The average lifespan of a leopard is about 15-16 years. We came across this old male. He's dying. He's old. He's trundling along, walking along. He was frothing from the mouth. Whatever. He'd be just really, really old. He's ragged. He's ill, most likely. He's just an old man, really. And off he went off into the distance. We never saw him again. We never knew what happened to him, whether he was finished off by another animal or just found somewhere to die. We don't know. But he just ambled past us. I wouldn't say miserable. I'd just say it's just acceptance. Acceptance of that he's had his day. He's had so many kills, he's sired so many cubs, he's had so many females, he's protected his territory. Yeah, and it's over. Like we know when it's over. With him it was over. He just walked off. We never saw him again. God bless old man. Often we get the, what you call a nightjar. Nightjar is a little bird. In England, it used to be called the goat sucker, because they used to think they used to suck the milk from goats, but that's because they were often found amongst goats, but that's not the case. Nightjar likes to lie in the road at night, because the road's still warm from the sun. You get the European nightjar, flies over to the UK every year, and I hear them outside my house in our village. You hear them in the fields chirring away, knowing that he's come from Africa, South Africa, mostly from one of the same game reserves I worked at. I don't know, maybe that's a picture of one of his ancestors, I don't know. But I just love the fact that they can migrate that far. It's a bit of a link with home. They've got a very extremely wide gape, because how they do, they act a bit like a basking shark. They fly around with their mouth open, and they have this huge gape that just envelops moths and insects that he then swallows. Very popular bird, with a very beautiful call as well. This is the Lisbon female. We met her earlier on at the start of this safari. She just killed a fully adult zebra. Now don't forget, a zebra's it's a donkey. It's a small horse. She brought that down on her own, which gives you an example of the power of a lioness. Lisbon female. She was very successful female. Raised her own cubs. One of my favourite females. And yes, she passed away eventually, just through ill health, age, and eventually she couldn't hunt anymore, and once again she became a bag of bones really, and went off to die. There's her again, with the zebra carcass that she's killed. See that black patch behind the ears, so her cubs can follow her. I think when I was at Sabi, I was there for quite a few years. I mean, about 12, 13 years. I was in and out of the bush, and Sabi and other game reserves, and I think she successfully raised about 6-7 sets of cubs. So she was a very good female, very fertile female, because obviously every time she was mated with a big male lion, she was always successful. So another one of my old friends that I shall always remember. So the two brothers we met earlier on. They're just looking up. It's starting to get on in the evening now. Starting on a bit. They're just looking off into the distance, hearing something that we can't, because their hearing is much more acute than ours. They're the beautiful mane. You ever get further north here, I mean, sometimes you get the big black mane lions, you get blonde maned lions, you get a mixture of both lions sometimes. And it's the only cat in the world that's developed that mane. As the reasons I said before, so the female can recognise them, protect the throat, status symbol. I guess it's all three, I guess. They're part of Damage Incorporated. I used to really enjoy these two boys, because they were very relaxed. When I walked into them on foot, all they used to do was look at me and growl. No, they didn't force any issues, or they were just. They had a very lovely nature, but like anything else, it's still a wild animal, and to be respected only because I knew exactly how far to approach them. They'll never mistake their reaction, because they're not friendly. They're wild. They're not friendly to you. They are tolerating you. Therein lies the difference. Dawn. The sun starts to break. Soul Safari and African Eden. This is the title of this slideshow I'm giving you. Dawn breaks. Everything starts yawning. It's been a long night. That cheetah we saw earlier on at night, she's just woken up. She's yawning away. As is the baboon, busy yawning away. You wouldn't want to get bitten by those teeth. This is why even a leopard would avoid fully grown baboons. Well, I mean, if they're the most funniest comical animal on the planet is a baboon. I mean, They're just so funny, but that's a big male, and you can see why they can be very unfunny. But anyway, he's having a good old yawn. Male lion's having a nice yawn there. Look at the back there. You see there's a tyre of a Land Rover, and one of the other rangers and his clients on safari were parked a short distance away, so you can see how close we can get. Then turns to look at me. I don't know what it was that morning, because I remember that morning quite well. I think I might have some kind of wildebeest deodorant on or something, because I was a great object of interest for some reason. Turns to look at me. So there's a cub. There's one of his siblings, his daughter, having a nice yawn. Then turned to look at me. Having a nice bit of a moment between husband and wife. And then she turned to look at me. I love mornings in Africa. It's hard to put into words, really. It's a hyena having a stretch, greeting the new day. They give birth to about 6 to 7 young, always found in a hole in the ground. They're communicating. Their communication is very, very advanced. We've got a whole plethora of different sounds which we are still learning, so to speak. Okay, they're famous for their laugh, but they're not laughing as we laugh. I said they're not laughing because it's funny. It's a form of communication. Another yawn. Lions have a special scent gland in their mouth. It's called the organ of Jacobson. I think I spoke about this earlier, where they can scent. If they pick up a scent, whether it's be urine scent sprayed onto a bush or aerial scent from the wind, with that Jacobson's organ in their mouth, they can tell whether it's male or female, whether it's on heat or not. Came across this old elephant bull walking along, getting ready for the heat of the day. I find elephants so placid. I mean, it's like an old man, just full of wisdom, full of experience. If they could talk, I'd love to hear what they had to say. I don't think they give us a very high opinion, but I still would love to hear what they've got to say. This is the first photograph I've ever taken of a wild animal. This is early morning game drive. I just got a camera, brand new. Drove out, and we came across this cheetah. She looked at me, I looked at her, I took the photograph, and my love affair with wildlife photography began. Dragonfly sitting on a post. Lions and hyenas don't get on at all. Often you find lions and hyenas compete against each other in everything. Hyenas chase, lions are killed through sheer weight of numbers. Lions will kill hyenas on sight. That's our Lisbon female again. She's killed a wildebeest. Very successful hunter, like I said before. Look at the shape of her body. Her body's very big, very powerful. Very powerful shoulders, thick neck. But very small head. It's almost like she had a smaller head. To cut down wind resistance. I don't know. Wind resistance, sorry. I don't know. But she was just extremely powerful. Very effective hunter. That's us. Come back from safari. I asked my guests to take a picture of us. We've all just arrived more or less within 10-15 minutes of each other. We went through different areas of the reserve, obviously, so it was on our own with our guests. Here's me at the front with my binoculars. just got back from safari. We have breakfast and we head out again for what we call the after breakfast safari. By this time it's quite hot. We often go to a water hole or go to the river, or your actual big animal safaris are not really done after breakfast. It's more like getting to potter around the bush. I'd give a talk on, say, termite mounds, or we go and look at some bushman carvings or paintings in the mountains or whatever, or go track elephants sometimes, just for the fun of it, and you get nice and close with them on foot. It's really nice. We also had a leopard project as well. We had 2 cubs that were translocated from the Kruger National Park, because I was working for a company called Bongani Mountain Lodge, which is a mountain game reserve. It was an experiment, really. It was the Kangwani Parks. They took African homelands and they made it into a game reserve, put a fence around it, because obviously you can't have farming and wildlife. And that land was then given to the local black population, who were going to manage it, who were going to be employed by it, and who were going to... this was to be their game reserve. Anyway, we built a hotel, we built the lodge, we translocated the animals from different other reserves that had surplus. We got a call. We had 2 leopard cubs that the mother's been killed by a lioness. Could you come and pick them up, or we could possibly rehabilitate them back into the wild? So we built a big enclosure, translocated these 2 leopard cubs back in there. So they spent about a month in this enclosure, just learning, or just basically starting to become leopards. The only problem is they didn't have a female to teach them. So we had to go out and shoot an impala and drag the meat in, and they'd start feeding off the meat. But every time I dragged the impala in, they would sit in the corner and snarl at me and get really angry and just show leopards, being leopards really. And these cubs, I took this photograph as I just dragged the impala in. I just put it on the ground, and these cubs would turn around and they were giving me root-a-toot. They were not, that's when I could see, okay, these guys are going to be fine. They're going to learn that natural instincts are going to kick in, and they're going to learn to hunt. And eventually, after a while, when we pulled the enclosure down and they were allowed to go free, they were very successful. And Bongani, as it was called, came a very famous African game reserve. I remember when Nelson Mandela came out to Bongani, and I met him, and we sat around the fire talking and he was telling us all about his time in prison, etc., etc. Unfortunately, I heard not a short while ago that Bongani since burnt down. So a dispute. I think some of the rangers, they shot a poacher, and because they shot a poacher, his buddies or whoever he was with came and they burnt the lodge down. So I don't know what the future of that place is. The zebra at the waterhole. Take a look at that zebra. You see her tail's docked. The tail's been chopped off. Now, we don't know what causes that. Do they bite it off? We think they do, because often when they have squabbles, they bite. Quite often they bite their tails off. Often used as fly whisks for some reason. I mean, they used to kill them by the hundreds and use their tails, just their tails, obviously the skin, with just the tails as a fly whisks. Bit of an insult, really. Well, that's beautiful colouring. I mean, look at that stripe colour on that one. You get the black stripe and you get the ghost stripe in between the two, the brown stripe in between the two. Then you get the white dazzle on the cheeks, the mane, and the legs. I mean, it's like a work of art, really. There's an old kill, as I said before in this lecture, about how vultures and Malibu storks, how they work. How they come down and they feed off the carcass, and you get different types of beak sizes for the different types of bodies, areas of the body. The thick beaks for the opening up the tough skin, the deboning beaks to take the skin, to take the meat off the bones. This is just them all on a kill, and they're all doing what I said before in the lectures on how they clean up the bush. Moving on, this is the Olifants River in the Cougar Park. We're driving over a bridge there, going to another section of the reserve. Often you can find hippo. I mean, big question, what is the purpose of a hippo? Same size as a rhinoceros, eats grass exclusively, and yet lives in the water. Its skin is very, very soft, so it has a reddish pigment that acts as a sunscreen, otherwise it will get sunburnt and crack. The nostrils are on top of the nose, so it can breathe with most of its head underwater. What is the purpose of it? What does it do? What is its ecological niche? Well, I'll tell you what it is. They act as dredgers. When you get a bend in a river, silt and sand will naturally form, because that bend will act as a catchment area, and eventually you will find a sandbank forming, which will eventually block the river, diverting it elsewhere. Maybe what these guys do, they lie on the sandbank, they walk up and down the sandbank, and they wear it down. They keep the river flowing. No hippo, no river. It will go somewhere else. Like in the place of the Okavango swamps, it goes into a big desert, where it becomes a swamp. So hippos have a very, very important ecological niche. Unfortunately, the most dangerous animal in Africa, as related in my book. I would remember one story, I think this might have been the guy actually, the same one, that I was into astronomy, so I was lying in my field between the ranger's quarters and the lodge, lying on the grass with a pair of binoculars looking up at the stars. And then I heard this chomp, chomp, chomp coming towards me. I turned around and there's this hippo walking straight towards me. Didn't know I was there, because the eyesight's not as good as it should be, and heading straight towards where I was lying down. Now a hippo, as I've told you, will attack very, very easily. Unfortunately, man always bases himself close to water, so the conflict is there almost all the time. Anyway, this hippo was walking towards me, after about 10 feet away. I had no choice. I said, alright, I'm in trouble here. Big trouble. Fortunately, I had a handgun strapped to my hip. A pistol. 357 Magnum to be exact. Anyway, I jumped up, shouted as loud as I could, fired 3 shots into the ground in front of its feet. The hippo turned around in complete surprise and shock, alarm, horror, shat all over me and himself and ran off. By the time I stopped shaking, it was time to go to the bar for a drink. The other rangers had heard the shot, so they came to investigate, and they were greeted by the sight of me covered in crap and laughing uncontrollably, many through hysteria, but I think I was sorry, many through relief. I think the hippo got a bigger fright than I did from the sound of from 10 feet away, a crazy human jumping up and down, shouting and firing shots in front of it. Not scare anybody. But yeah, hippo, very dangerous. His Latin name is hippopotami. It's quite an easily worked out name, if you want to call it that. There's a golden orb spider, often found in the lodges and the chalets, often strung between 2 trees above the road. That little guy's a male, the big guy's a female. So, what these guys would do, which used to take great satanic glee in doing, is that they spun their webs between 2 trees across the road, with the big female hanging right in the middle. So I used to park the Land Rover right underneath, and every time the wind blew, the web would shake, and with a great possibility of this female, with the shaking of the wind, falling into the Land Rover. It would never happen, of course, because the web's strong enough and she's actually quite well anchored, but I didn't say that. So I would be pretending, looking at a bird or something, knowing, and also point out the spider above them. I think the guests were quite relieved when they did finally drive off, but it's completely harmless. I mean, the only poisonous spider we've got there is the black widow spider that can be fatal. But the golden orb spider is harmless, though very beautiful. Oh, before, what do you call a herd of rhinoceros? I think it's I think herd is the wrong word, actually. I think herd is more towards zebra and stuff like that. I think a phalanx of white rhino, or a Roman square of white rhino, or a battleship of white rhino. That seems more better, actually. Battleship of white rhino. Actually, white rhino, obviously, once before. There's radar ears, not radar love, radar ears. Look at the lump behind the shoulder, extra muscle. Very placid. That was taken on foot, actually. You can see the baby's moved back. There's 3 of them actually there. Some male, female, and calf. Well, the calf is now a teenager. And they're just looking at us quite happily. Because often we used to find the tracks of, say, white rhino or elephant or whatever, jump off the Land Rover and walk in there. It's recommended. There's less bush damage. Because every time you drive off-road, not only do you destroy the bush and the trees with the Land Rover, you compact the soil. So the water, the subterranean water can't run as freely as it should. But anyway, that's a phalanx. Roman square. Battleship of white rhinoceros. It's a wildebeest roadblock. The thing about the wildebeest, it's got the head of a buffalo, the shoulders, think of a giraffe, and the back of a zebra. I think it's a bit of 3 animals in one, really. They're the ones that have that huge big migration every year in the Serengeti. Is it a buck? Is it an antelope? Or is it a queen family is it like a zebra? No, it's an antelope. There's 2 types, there's the blue and the black. The blue's got the horns like a buffalo, as you see there, off to the side. The black's got horns to the front. Starting to go to sunset now. Came across this little impala ewe looking at us in the sunlight. Look at those ears, like radars. Came across one of the brothers who was on his own. I think the other one must have been either asleep or chasing women or something, but he was just sitting there on his own, looking into the distance again. So it's an image of power, isn't it? Image of pure power. And yet masculinity, and yet serenity. Nothing more impressive than the mixture of serenity and power. Martial artists trying to attain that. Animals have got it anyway. Sleep well, O leopard. Look at that. I love the spider. I mean, look at the colours on the skin, the rosettes. I mean, the gold. I mean, she's almost glowing, glowing in the late afternoon sun. Sleeping off, just having a nice chill out before the evening hunt, no doubt. I'm just always struck by just how they. I mean, I've seen leopard skins on the walls of people. I've seen a leopard skin as a rug. I've seen leopard skins in museums. It doesn't glow like it does in a live animal. It's dead, it's lifeless. It doesn't look the same. That's a lilac-breasted roller bird, fluffing its wings ready to go and roost. Another bird that migrates up into Europe every year. Called a roller because the way it rolls in its flight, but couldn't quite get the colours out there, but their colour is very, very bright and very striking. Very beautiful bird. Birds just getting ready to go and roost up for the night. Coming across back to camp, we came across a zebra crossing on the road. There's one thing about the African light, it's just really, I mean, I've travelled around the world, but I've never seen light quite like it is in Africa. And we stop for a sundowner. As the sun sets, another night begins. Another night of life and death in the long grass, in an African Eden. Well, as I said before, a lot of these photographs, I mean all these photographs are taken by myself. I know that's me in the doorway there having a chat with another fellow ranger, Tony, that we used to do a lot of photography together. And one thing about wildlife photography, I mean, in my day it was film. There was no digital, it was all film. So what we had to do is take a roll of film, wait till one of the head office staff came from the head offices in Johannesburg via flying in, give her the film. She would fly back out again a few days later, send it into the labs, all labelled and everything, so there's no confusion. Then the next staff member that came from head office to the game reserve brought it with them. So we had to take the photographs, then wait for about 2-3 weeks before we got the photographs back, not knowing how they'd turn out, not knowing if they were underexposed, overexposed, whatever, if things had worked out or not. So it was a very long waiting time before we actually saw the results and our images. Nowadays it's all, you instantaneously just look at the back of the camera and there's a picture. These were the days also before Photoshop, before you could enhance and crop and whatever. You had the shot, that was a shot you took. There's not much else you could do with it. That was your shot. You couldn't add sunlight, you couldn't change the background, you couldn't do anything. And I think that just made it more exciting, really, made it more real. Nowadays, I mean, you know, you look at the back of a Land Rover and they've all got their mobile phones up taking photographs. I mean, in my day there was no mobile phones, there was no computers, and there were definitely no digital cameras. You know? And the images that you've just seen are all taken with my Minolta X300 with a 70 to 210 zoom lens and a 35 to 70 lens and a Metz flash. That was it. And Agfa and Fuji film. Agfa for winter, because it brought out the colours for, and Fuji for the summer, because it had a very lovely colour saturation. Nowadays, you take like a digital image, and you could put saturation on it on your computer. Whereas in those days, we had to have the right film for saturation. And of course, we also got into the equipment in a big way. I mean, you all brought big zoom lenses and telephoto lenses, 600mm or below, and Metz flashes and 2 different types of bodies and whatever, the camera bodies. All your different film types. Do you use 50 ASA, 100 ASA as your film type, or whatever? You could go into really technical detail, but the fact is it was so much fun. Every time you do a safari, wondering, what am I going to see and photograph tonight or today? And as Tony and myself, we used to go out and work as a team a lot. Well, Tony's the guy with the beard, I'm in the doorway. And if you found a leopard, you let me know. And we try and use the Land Rovers not to hinder or not to, just to try and set our guests up and ourselves up for a good shot of a leopard doing what comes naturally to a leopard without any interference whatsoever. Now, that's all changed now. All this is all written in my book, Soul Safari. I thought, well, okay, what I've just told you now is just it's basically the slideshow I do for, as I said, for schools and colleges. And there's much more detail in my book, Soul Safari. There's all different anecdotes of what happened with this animal, what happened with that client, a lot of shenanigans, so to speak, in the bush with animals and people. It's not only just the bush it's all about. When I was working as a dive master as well. And what you've just heard is just a very small, it just basically it's a safari that I've done. But there's much more detail in my book. It's available now on Amazon. Okay, that's that one. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to finish this off now. The next lecture, module 4, the next module is the last module. The last module is everything condensed. The result. I'll see you again on the next and the last module. God bless. Thank you for listening to me. Bye for now.